The Roots of Success podcast is for the landscape professional who's looking to up their game. We've got a brain trust of experts to help you nurture the roots of a successful business and grow to the next level. This is the Roots of Success.
Welcome to the Roots of Success podcast, and I'm your host, Tommy Cole, and we have an awesome guest, my awesome friend, John Dalton. He is the marketing guru I've known for the last few years. It's been an awesome ride, and so we got John joining us. How are you, John, by the way?
I'm great, Tommy. I'm awesome. Glad to be here.
John, this is a special episode, and I wanted you on this one almost to the day, like literally almost there. We are celebrating our 2 years of Roots of Success. I don't know how this happened. I'm just a landscape architect kind of dude, and this has kept going on for 2 years. I'm shocked. I was ready to parachute out this thing a few months into it, said this is not my deal. But somehow, miraculously, a lot of people have enjoyed this. And it's been great to produce over the years. Reason why John Dalton is sitting here today is I owe a ton of credit to this gentleman to talk me off the ledge multiple times of continuing this podcast. There's a lot of traction. There's a lot of good feedback, and there's a lot of good education as we are working on our business, working on ourselves, driving the pickup truck to and from job sites. I thank you a lot. I also owe a ton of credit to Paul Myers. He does a lot of behind the scenes editing all these episodes. John, anything to say about this?
Sure. I mean, it's been a fun ride. I remember starting from the very beginning, just kind of working through some of the technical issues, and then, like you said, talking you off the ledge and working on your resting bitch face and getting you polished up for the camera. But I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I've certainly seen you grow and, kind of step into your own as a host. And, we've had a lot of really great episodes along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of what we've created. So kudos to you for, sticking with it. And now this will be episode number 55. So over halfway to 100. And I think it just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, that's great. Here's the thing. My first few episodes were terrible. And so let's apologize to like Liz Helton, Chris Winkler, Chris Pinchak, Tracy and Megan, maybe Josh Meter. Those people that were the first, thank you so much for like believing in me and being on a weird podcast where Tommy has no idea. So there's some bloopers, I think, John, that you want to share. I think there's a few funny ones along the way.
Yeah, it was when we were getting ready to do this episode, I was trying to think of some of the more interesting times we've had. I mean, obviously in the beginning, just kind of wrestling with the tech and the microphones and getting all that set was sometimes a struggle, but there was a couple of things that really stuck out in my mind. Like, it took us a while to get Marty Grunder to be on the podcast. We really wanted him to be on at a specific time and, to help us promote an event and all this stuff. We finally got it all lined up. Press record, and like 2 minutes in, the whole thing just turns off and everybody's disconnected. And I don't know how long it took. Yeah, it just stopped. And I don't know how long it took us to get everything all back connected, because I was disconnected for maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you guys had to basically just start all over and record it.
Yeah, that was not fun. Marty's a busy man. He's a high profile person with lots of experience and knowledge. And we've been gearing up for Marty, and all of a sudden it just, for whatever reason, nothing worked.
Yep.
But if I have any advice on that deal, is no panic, stay calm.
Mm-hmm.
We'll figure it out. We just had to extend a little more time than normal, and we figured it out. We worked through it. It worked. It worked out great. Thank you for Marty he probably said a few curse words along the way, like this is ridiculous, but he was patient.
Yeah, and very gracious.
It went well. It went well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was stressful. I mean, the one time when you're like, this has to go perfect, that's the one time it's going to just completely screw up.
Yeah.
So of course that's what happened. And then I remember, I think this was just last year, you banked a bunch of episodes like right before Christmas so you could take some time off. And then one of them was just missing. Like it got lost somewhere in the internet ether. And it took us a couple days and, some calls to support to find it. But you were right. You recorded it. It was
Yeah.
there. You
Yeah.
didn't have to call somebody and do it again. But I think it was the day after Christmas. You and I were texting back and forth. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't see it, man. I don't know what happened. But
Yeah.
we ended up finding it. So, just some of those little things that happened along the way just kept
Yeah.
it interesting. But it's been a fun ride.
Yeah. That was stressful. That's actually Christmas Eve. I recorded several, and thank you to those guests. I recorded several, and then all of a sudden they just were gone, and I freaked out because I worked so hard on those. It's almost like working on an Excel spreadsheet for 5 hours, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden you look up and it's gone. That doesn't happen near as often with autosave, but I really panicked. I'm like, John, I'm sorry to bother you. It's literally Christmas, and I have no episodes. But it all worked out. It's been an unbelievable ride, and it's been just fascinating to interview these owners, vendors, managers along the way to share their experience. And at the time, a lot of times us landscapers just look at these great men and women and say, man, they got it all, when really, yeah, they have a lot, but they had to get to a lot. They had to build their businesses. They had to build their people. They lost money along the way. They lost
Mhm.
clients. They lost people. And it's about the journey getting to where they are at this point. So it's been a really good ride. Um,
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that's really worked, Tommy, I know you're hard on yourself and uh, you've worked really hard to improve yourself, but really what people like about you and your message is just how relatable you are, right? You're one of them. You've run a landscaping company, the division, a company on its own, and you've worked with all these different people. Like you get it, right? And they understand that you know what it's like to be in their shoes. And I think that means a lot to people. And that's why we've been so successful. That's why this has lasted for 2 years. So I just want to congratulate you on, putting in the work, doing all of those things, working on Christmas Eve to get all this stuff done. And in 2 years, we've never missed an episode. So
yeah. Yeah.
it's been a lot
Yeah.
of work, but it's been great.
Yeah. We have not missed it. And I go more credit to John and Paul saying, oh my gosh, we're low on episodes. What are you doing? And I'm like, I got it. I got it. Oh my God. So, accountability at the end of the day, someone was holding me accountable, and to make sure that we had enough in the pipeline. We never missed a release date in
Mhm.
2 years. And so it'll keep going that way. John, I asked you to bring something with you to the show, and we'll cap this off. But if you guys know me, I don't really drink much, if any, but people know me as Prosecco Tommy. And if you're out there in the audience, I was developed that name a few years ago in Italy, playing the great game of tennis that I love so much. And there were some people out there that wanted to challenge me in the great game of tennis, and I kind of let them know who was boss at the end of the day. Alongside me in that was a little friend known as Prosecco, and I enjoyed the ride. So without further ado, I brought a special guest on with John and I, and we have topped off with a champagne toast of Prosecco, just to cheers the moment for Roots of Success. Thank you for all the listeners. If it wasn't for you, we would not be sitting here today. And thank you for all the amazing guests we've had on the shows for the last 2 years to help spread the life hard lessons of building a business and building yourself. Thanks to the entire team behind Reach of Success to make it all happen. And man, let's see what the future holds. But cheers to everyone that's out there to help this work, and we'll see what's next.
Cheers, Tommy.
Cheers. All right, here we go. Woo! Very
Nice.
good. Good stuff. All right. Now that's over with of being, cute and fun about what's happened. Let's move on, because we're all about business right here, and
That's
we
right.
want to learn. John is the marketing guy, and I said earlier, the guru for marketing. Marketing's such a big word, John. It's like, let me, I heard this the other day, and it was summarized as marketing very well, especially for us landscapers. When you say someone, hey, I do landscaping, what do you think? It's landscaping is the broadest term on earth, right? You could, what could you do? You could do maintenance. It could be residential. It could be commercial. It could be industrial. You could do snow. You could do install, but the install is residential, maintenance, design, build, commercial. You could do pools, plumbing, electrical, arbors. What am I missing? Like, landscaping is such a gigantic word that you have to say, well, I do landscaping, but this is what I do. So could I make the argument and go, what's your marketing? So what is it? Don't you feel like that's a similar term? Marketing and landscaping is the same kind of like broad brushstroke, to where landscapers also just don't understand like what there's so many branches within all that. And I think we get so confused on what, like, we have website, and then we have like traffic, and then we have a marketing plan, and then we have this thing called social media, and then we have branding. I'm missing probably 10 things, but help me understand these regular landscapers like me that just says, what's marketing? So we have a start real high, and then we'll start needling down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. It is very broad and nebulous, just like the term landscaping, right? And all the things that you said are 100% correct about marketing. You can slice and dice it into 100 different things, but for me, it's essentially, how do you communicate with your customer? And that's as simple as it gets. Now, I think one of the things that I think most people, a lot of landscapers, they kind of skip over is, who is their customer, right? Because they make the mistake of thinking it's everybody. We're not really dialing in who that person is. So understanding who you're communicating with is definitely the first step. But then marketing is all of those different communications. And, in some people's mind, that includes sales. Some of you may have heard the term like chief revenue officer.
Yeah.
A lot of times marketing and sales will kind of funnel into that person, because marketing and sales have to be very well coordinated if you want to have those two things work together well, because everything that your customer sees is a marketing touch point, right? Whether that's social media, the website, your truck, uniforms, communications to somebody on the phone, all of that stuff falls under that marketing umbrella. So it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to say, it's almost like I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, who's your customer? Because I think when you say that, you're marketing to different people, right? And maybe it's not a person, maybe it's a business, or maybe it's a group, or maybe it's a certain demographic, or maybe it's a certain zip code, and so you got to narrow on that, and then find out what they like, and then be strategic about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So talk about your marketing assessment that you've been working on, how it works, how it flows. And if you're listening in the truck, great, kind of build the picture of what you're doing with a lot of companies. You kind of start to get on the road, helping these landscape companies maybe start to be an awareness of what marketing, you're evaluating their marketing currently, good, bad, and ugly. And then which direction you're probably identifying the client, customer, and then you're also giving them a game plan of sort of what's going on. So tell me about your marketing assessment.
Sure. Yeah. So, over the past 2.5 years, with you and I working together, most of what I've been doing is focusing on helping McFarland Stanford find new clients, right? Let's get some new discovery members, ACE peer group members, which is great. I love doing that. But as an entrepreneur myself, I really like helping business owners. So I've put together this marketing framework to try to help landscapers do a better job of communicating with their customers. So just over the past month, I've started offering this as a service. I've done 3 of these already just in the past few weeks. Basically, it's a 1 to 2 day on site where I sit down with the owner and their marketing team if they have people in house and really just dig in and try to figure out what they've been doing, what's working, what's not working, what are the gaps, and really look at everything through this framework I created called the 7 C's. And basically, what we do is we start with, okay, what do you have? What do you have in terms of your brand? So those first 2 C's are clarity and consistency. And Tommy, you and I talked about branding, I guess probably about a year and a half ago. And that's really what I talk about with branding is clarity and consistency equals customers. So that branding is the foundation. So we really start with that to see, how solid is your branding? How well defined is that? And that means it's not just logos and colors. It's really more about your positioning and how you talk about yourself to customers, right? So that's kind of the first step. And then customers is the next one. One of the things that I find that I mentioned earlier is a lot of these guys really don't understand who their customer is. They say, well, I sell high-end residential. But if you sell in, like, let's take Dallas, for example, if you sell in different areas of Dallas, if you're in the Park Cities versus Flower Mound, you're selling to very different people, right? And you need to understand what motivates them, because at the end of the day with your customer, you want to know what their problem is so that you can give them the right solution. That's really what you're searching for. And if you can talk to them in that kind of language that, hey, I understand your problem and here's how I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
It's a much easier yes for them.
Yeah.
So we make sure that you really understand your customer. The next thing we look at is your team, right? Who do you have in-house that's actually in charge of marketing? I think
is that coordination?
Yes, that's the coordination. Sorry. Yes, that's the 4th C. Thank you for keeping me on track.
Yeah.
So a lot of landscapers, I'll say, marketing is kind of at the bottom of the priority pile, right? Largely because it's a little bit nebulous, like you mentioned, and some of us just don't get it. So it's like, let's just get out there and try to sell to people. I'll worry about this stuff later. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we end up handing that off to, well, my wife's son just graduated from college and he's on social media. So I'll bring him in and see if he can help us with marketing.
Yeah.
The problem with it is, if you just have a young, inexperienced person, they don't necessarily know how to build a brand or understand the customers. They may know how to do some social media posting, but that is one tactic, and it's quite frankly a very poor tactic in terms of generating leads. So what I try to look at is, who do you have in place? Do you have contractors or maybe, an SEO person outside? Who is on that team, and what do we need to kind of bolster that up and fill it in? And then the next thing we look at, the 5th C is cohesiveness. And this is really all about your strategy and your plan. So most people don't have a plan, to be quite honest with you. Even some, 8-9 figure businesses are doing a lot of, throwing shit up against the wall and seeing if it sticks. And occasionally you get lucky, but that's not really a good strategy.
Right.
So we really try to dig in and look at that plan and see, how can we do this better? How can we make sure you're tracking metrics? All of those things that you talked about with operations or finance, it's the same here. You got to have numbers, right?
Yeah.
And then the last 2 C's are communication and conversion. So this is actually about the execution of your marketing. Like, how is this working? Is this converting to sales? And if it's not converting to sales, it's not working. Now, it doesn't matter to me if you're getting a bunch of new followers and you got a lot of engagement on your social media. None of that matters if it doesn't lead to sales, right? That's ultimately the job of marketing, is to generate income or generate leads to the sales team. And if it's not doing that, then there's work to be done. So we go through that whole framework. At the end of it, I'll give them a pretty detailed report on all 7 of those C's. And then at the end of it, there's an action plan of what to do over the next 90 days, 6 months to a year, to try to prioritize all of those gaps so that we can really start making progress.
Love it. So is this like a framework so to speak, for companies. And this is like almost I'm looking at sort of a diagram here, but is this
Mhm.
something that, first off, you evaluate, but you also within your business need to sort of have an awareness of all of these and like, how are we relating to customers, right? It's almost like you got to take a step back and have these meetings within your own group, within your own leadership team or something, and say, how are we on clarity and consistency? How do the trucks look? How do the
Yeah.
invoices look? How does you know, our uniforms look? How do we look at our shop? How do like all of those things? And it's almost like a self-report card,
Mhm.
kind of, right? So you kind of like look at those and cohesiveness. Oh my gosh, that's like a great word. Like, are we in unison of what we're practicing at
Yeah.
the end of the day? And then how we're communicating. So let me rephrase these. It's clarity and consistency, customers, then coordination, then cohesiveness, and last but not least, communication and conversion, which sales, right? It's got to
Mhm.
work its favor.
Yeah, marketing's gotta make money or it's not worth it.
Not worth it. Got it.
Mhm.
And so so John, if you're a listener out there, what do you recommend? Like, what's a fair budget? What if you've got a small business? Do you outsource this? When do you bring on someone full time? Or like, how does that compare to social media person versus just marketing? So like, if you're young and Lincoln, yeah, I need to do something finally because I've put this off to the side for a long time. What's their steps and what do they need to do consistently down the road?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and unfortunately, there's not an easy answer to that. One of the things that I found in doing these and talking to different people is everybody's business is different, right? And even a business that looks the same, like say in Dallas, you have a business that does residential and commercial maintenance. That same business, in Illinois is going to be very different because their commercial maintenance also includes snow, which is an entirely different kind of profit margin, right? So at the end of the day, you have to look at your business individually and you have to understand who those customers are, right? I can't stress that enough that
Mhm.
that's really where you should start. I think the other thing that I think people can do, especially for that brand kind of clarity and consistency, and this is a tip that I give to people all the time, is gather pictures of everything that you put out there. Pictures of your truck, pictures of your uniform, your social media feed, any kind of sales flyers or anything that you produce like that, whether it's a postcard or a folder, any piece of communication that has your logo on it, signs outside the building, print them all out and stick them on a wall. And if you step back and ask yourself, does this look like it's one company or does it look like it's like 12 or 13? If it doesn't clearly look like one company, then you're missing the boat on that clarity and consistency because each one of those things should be supporting each other. And if they all look different, you're just creating confusion. You're not creating clarity at all. So that's a good place to start if you just want to see a snapshot of maybe how effective your, visual communication pieces are. That's a really good place to start. But if you don't have a marketing background, you know, honestly, the best thing you can do is to find somebody like me who does have that kind of a background who can kind of point you in the right direction. There
Yeah.
is no one size fits all.
Yeah.
Social media is not going to act the same for the guy in Dallas as it is for the guy in Illinois. And if you don't understand all of the different pieces, you're going to waste a ton of time and a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to help people do is do it in an effective way and spend their money in a way that it's actually going to have some ROI and come back to them.
Yeah. That's such a great point. I feel like since I've been around the country a lot for many years, when you're working in the business, you almost kind of have a set of blinders and not know what's really truly projecting out
Mhm.
of what the company looks like. So the idea is for you to take pictures of all these things and then put it on a board and see what makes sense. You're probably going to have a lot of not clarity, unclarity thoughts because it's a broken set of communication. That's not terrible. That's not awful. That's just the way it is. And
Yeah.
we got into this business because not because of marketing. We got in because we wanted to do really good things and work outdoors. And so that's a great assessment, is to understand, is figure out where you are currently.
Mhm.
The value of an ICP, an ideal client profile, is super valuable, not for just marketing. This is like general business. And you did this, you've done several of these presentations where, you've got a poster board of the perfect client and the demographics and where they live and the home values, if you're residential, et cetera. Really, because that like spins off into so many directions. Now it spins off to ad campaigns and marketing and social media feeds, but also spins off like everyone knows who we're shooting for. Everyone knows who we work for.
Mhm.
And there's no fogginess. It's very, very clear. So I love that assessment. So to take pictures of everything, see how it is, and go from there and define your ICP.
Yeah. And definitely with the customer profile, like you mentioned the demographics, right? And like where they live. And that is absolutely
Yeah.
a must have information. But I always push people to take it a little bit further. Like you want to understand who those people are, what makes them tick. So, yeah, okay, so I do high end residential in the southern part of Asheville, right? That's where I live, so it's an area I'm familiar with. Great, like I have home values and all of that stuff. But what really is going to make a difference is if you understand who those people are. So, and what I mean by that is what really motivates them. So, if most of those people are young families, right, where maybe you have a primary kind of breadwinner and a caregiver. You have two kids in school. A lot of in that part of my town, they go to a private school. Like
Yeah.
you want to really understand their life so that you can be in front of them in as many places as possible.
Yeah.
You want to talk their language. So it's all about understanding their values and their motivations, not just their demographics, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. It's no different than if I was to come into a business and look at operations or equipment and training the team. An outside observation is very well done, and not a better word than John, really taking a stab at that with all his experience, coming in with no emotions, coming in with a background. That's great. So you also create an action plan for the next 6 to 12 months. So talk about what that means. Well, give me some examples of like what an action plan would be. Is that John Dalton doing the marketing, or is that like helping someone do the marketing within the business, or maybe it's the local person that does some marketing? Or kind of give us a sense of what people can expect.
Sure. Yeah. So, sometimes that can be me. Sometimes that is part of the recommendation, to have me come in as a fractional CMO, even if that's just a couple hours a month, just to kind of help with the planning. But it really depends on what you have in place. Sometimes it can be just you have a great marketing team, but they just need a little bit of support and maybe a mentor. We have a client in South Dakota. He's got a great marketing manager. She's just kind of young and needs a little bit of guidance. I
Yeah.
coach her once a month, right? And I help her with some different things, but they don't need me on a long-term basis because they have a good thing set in place. I did an assessment just a few weeks ago for a client up in Minnesota. I have lots of, kind of recommendations for them. So like, for example, in the first 3 months, they don't have a marketing person. So I'm helping them with a job description on that, helping them update some brand elements,
Yeah.
trying to align some conversations with the sales team, because one of the things I do on those assessments is I interview with the salespeople, because a lot of times I find there's a big gap in communication between sales and marketing. They don't talk to each other, and that's always a problem. So I always include them in that process to try to understand what the salespeople need, because that's critical to their job. And then for them, we're going to do some website updates in that first 3 months, right? And then in the next 6 months, we're going to go a little bit deeper on some of their strategy, help them build out some metrics. Sometimes it's me recommending some outside help. Like for these people, they need some help with SEO. I have a good kind of stable of vetted marketing specialists that I can pull in based on, those needs. And those people, I just introduce them to you. I don't like mark them up. I don't take 20%. Like I don't do that. If you want to hire me to do things, great. But I have some really great people that can help you. Like I want to help you grow your business. It's not about me padding my wallet. So, so for 6 months, we're going to help them do some video and photography. And then within the next 9 to 12 months, we'll do some kind of more long-term things with like a content plan. I'm going to help them update some of their design guidelines. We're trying to focus on some of those things that will drive revenue early. And then down the road, we'll get to rebranding their vehicles to kind of update those a little bit, working on some digital ad campaigns and even some trade booth design. So it's very specific to them. And I try to really, step it out in those kind of 3-month blocks. So it doesn't seem so overwhelming that you have, all of this shit's broken and you have to fix all of it. Right.
Right.
And my wife, who you mentioned before, says overwhelm is not having too much to do. It's not knowing where to start. So I want to make sure that I give you a place to start and show you, step by step how we're going to get all of this stuff fixed so that you have that marketing machine that's really, really functioning well.
Yeah. Love that. And so it's a framework at the end of the day. It's in 3-month quadrants. So in quarters, that's easily to digest. I understand. All right, Q1, this is what we got to do. We just need to execute on it. John's there to understand. It's no different than hiring a coach. No different than a business person, no different than a financial advisory for your personal finances, right? This is what we do. I met with my financial advisor several weeks ago. He goes, this is what the plan is for the future with the stock market, how much you're doing for kids' college. Like it's a game plan. Like that's what we need in landscape. And it's just, John, you're the professional. Tell me what we need to do in small bite-sized chunks. And then we'll get it all done. And we'll look back at 2 years and go, oh my God, look at where we are now. Here's the results. Here's what we've accomplished. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I really want to do is give them a playbook, right?
Yeah.
Like almost with like a checklist of things like, okay, here's how we're going to start. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Because if you just dump a big deck on their desk and they're like, this is all the shit you need to fix. A lot of times that's not going to get done. So you have to have the playbook and the checklist to go with it.
Yeah.
I think it makes a big difference.
For sure. What is there any hot trends, marketing in general, that is either trends meaning it's just a hot subject, not sure it's working, there needs to be more time, or there's things, John, that you go, yeah, this is really working for businesses right now, and it's taking off. Is there anything that's kind of like, ooh, that's juicy?
Yeah, a couple of things that just come up recently. I always talk a lot. People ask me a lot of questions about social media. And to me, it's one of those things that you can spend way too much time on and it doesn't have a really good ROI. But it's necessary. And I still think everybody should do it. Just be careful how much time you spend on it. But I've had some really interesting conversations with some people lately who social media is totally their life. And one of the things that we started to see is even in the landscaping world itself, like there's some good examples of this, even within our peer groups, is it's a great window into the people of your business to kind of put a face behind the brand, right? To have a relationship with people. And I've always known it's a good tool for that, right? To just kind of put some reality and some humanity into your brand. But one of the side bonuses of that we're finding out is it doesn't just help with your customers, right? It also helps with employees. It's also a window into your culture, and people are seeing that it helps them recruit people. Because when you're trying to hire somebody, they want to work for a good company. They want to see They want to go to a place they're going to feel welcomed. It's going to be fun. It's going to be challenging. And social media is where they go to see what kind of a company it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if your social media sucks or you barely have anything there, they're going to move on. And I've had conversations, and that definitely happens with people in our own peer groups. And I'm actually hoping to put on a webinar in the next couple months with this company to help show people how to showcase your company and its culture on social media for your customers and for your employees and your potential employees. So that was kind of an eye-opening thing for me recently, is that kind of hidden benefit of social media with recruiting. And it's not something that I've ever thought about before, but there's real evidence that works.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. Like, I circled the word clarity back on your 7 C's. That clarity is not just the client or it's just general marketing. It's clarity within the organization. And so if you take like your example, you take all these pictures of all these objects within your business and put it on a wall, and if it's confusing, it's probably really confusing for your own team.
100%.
And so that is so fascinating. What a great answer. And I would suspect that's most landscape companies, because marketing's an afterthought. One of the things I've learned recently was your social media posts almost are more about the team, so to speak, the collaboration, the cohesiveness to get a job project done, the behind the scenes to come together and pre-plan a job before it gets installed. So like, if you talk about the team and what it makes to build or maintain these properties, that's what people are attracted to, the client and potential people to hire, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm a client looking at the social media feed and going, wow, it's team building, they're prepping jobs, they're working together, they're collaborating, they're doing all this work just to maintain my property. Like, I had no idea. I thought to show up and just mode, and it just is what it is. But if you had a team behind it to collaborate and that was documented along the way, talk about a recruiting tool and talk about a tool for clients to go, that's what they like about. It's not necessarily like the product, right? Mowing grass or put it in shrubs. That's not all of it. It's about the collaborative effort of a team that goes into to do the product that can get showcased. I don't know. I kind of learned that here recently, last 6-12 months. And if you could feature that, wow, then you're doing this recruiting, you're attracting this talent because they're watching you, but yet you're also doing the same for your clients. And John and his team can produce something like that. I dare anyone to show me a social media feed that focuses a lot on the team and what's behind the scenes, because it's not just pushing a mower, guys. Yeah. Right? But that's what the clients think sometimes. And rightfully so.
Yeah, it is. And that's at the end of the day, there's 1,000 landscapers, right? And regardless of where you live, there's hundreds of choices. If you're a homeowner or you're a business, you can call 20 people this afternoon and get a bid. But at the end of the day, people want to buy from people, right? They don't want to buy just from a company. They want to have a relationship with those people. Yeah. And that's a good way to give them a peek behind the curtain of what that relationship is going to be like. And that can help separate you. I think I said in the beginning that social media is not a good generator of leads. It isn't. But when you do have a lead, let's say they see your truck driving by or they get a postcard, they're going to go look at your social media feed to see what it's all about. And they might follow you for a couple of weeks before they decide to give you a phone call. Yeah. And if they can see not just pictures of your great work, which you should have on there as well, but also all of these different things about your employees and that, hey, this looks like a fun place to work. They take care of people. I can see the faces of the guys that are actually going to come work on my yard or build my deck. That's going to make them feel at ease. And that's going to help separate you from the other guy who just post twice a week with some random drone shot of a house that they just mowed the yard at. Like
Right.
anybody can do that. So just do it better, right? And feature your people, and it will make a difference for sure.
Yeah. Love that. That is the focusing on the team, whether it be management, the awesome field staff that you have or whatever, focus on that. And then that you delivering a stellar product. At the end of the day, I think that'll help convert. John, anything else to add that we may have missed? And any advice for anyone out there, marketing or not? You've got a pile of books behind your head right now that you've probably read or at least thrown into some chat GPT, but anything professional advice, personal advice that you want to share. So I'll leave you with those two.
Yeah. I mean, for the landscapers, my best advice is don't overlook it and don't let marketing frustrate you, right? Start somewhere. And if you're going to start anywhere, start with your brand and that foundation.
Yeah.
And figure out, is my stuff clear and consistent across the board? If you do nothing else, do that and make sure you understand your customers. That's going to make the rest of your decisions much, much easier. And if you need help, don't just go ask Chat GPT. Reach out to somebody like me or get them a recommendation from somebody else in landscaping and have a conversation with people. I will say there's a lot of great marketing people, but there's just as many bad marketing people, right? Another parallel with landscaping.
Landscapers, yep.
Right? So, talk to people, but get recommendations, check references, do all of that stuff so you don't get burned, because a lot of people stop doing marketing because they hire someone who's terrible and they get a bad taste in their mouth. But marketing can work. It can generate a significant amount of income for you, and it can separate you from your competition if you do it right. You just have to talk to the right people. Yeah. And I'm happy to help anybody if they're looking for help.
Yeah, good. How do they get in touch with you, John?
Well, they can reach out to me via email at McFarland Stanford. My email is just john.dalton@mcfarlandstanford.com. I'm sure we'll include that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, if you guys are watching it there. So I'll make sure there's a link to that. That's the best place to reach me. Or, if you want to just reach out to me directly via text or phone, I'll give you my phone number. It's 828-782-1651. And you can text me or call me anytime. And I'm happy to have, a 10 or 15 minute conversation, at no charge, just to kind of talk to you about what your problems are and see if it'd be a good fit for me to help you.
Yeah, very, very good. Well, if anything that's learned throughout my journey is getting help in the sense of, if you don't know finances, get someone that knows finances in this industry or service industry. I don't know finances that well, but I know how to do a stellar install. Check. If you don't know marketing, then get someone that knows marketing like John and just get them involved, because listen, you want to go do the work. You got a team to manage. So when you partner or use resources externally to help build your business, they always say, hire a mentor, hire someone smarter than you to do this, help me get better in this business. Don't think of marketing as an afterthought, or I'll get to it at some point. It should be right up in line with revenue and install and maintenance in your team, in your finances. It's got to be right there at the same level as all of those. You need to have a plan. You need to execute on it. John, it's always a pleasure. The man behind the scenes in all these episodes. Happy 2 years. It's been an awesome ride. I enjoyed it. Most of it along the way. We've all gotten a little bit better. And most importantly, I can't stress this, the most important, it's about the audience, about the listeners, just getting a 1% better every day. And when you get 1% better each and every day, you improve on yourself and also on your business. And I'll leave it at that. John, thanks again for being a great friend and a great behind the scenes host, and sharing all your marketing advice on this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and congratulations on the 2 years. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Awesome. See you soon, my friend.
All right, thanks. Ready to take the next step? Download our free profitability scorecard to quickly create your own baseline financial assessment and uncover the fastest ways to improve your business. Just go to mcfarlandstanford.com/scorecard to get yours today. To learn more about McFarland Stanford, our best-in-class peer groups, and other services, go to our website at mcfarlandstanford.com, and don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time on The Roots of Success.